I've played tons of PC games. They were the cornerstone of my childhood. No matter where I went, I always had access to a computer, and it felt like there were entire summers I spent playing wonderful games. As an adult, to me, the PC market is the easiest library to check out. Information, it's at our fingertips, and as such, so are the games. Today I'm going to give you 10 more PC games that you should check out, games that are fun, different, and just an overall badass time. Let's begin. Horror games are a hit or miss for me. It really depends on the ambiance set by the developers. Growing up, I messed with Resident Evil 4 and Amnesia: The Dark Descent, but outside of that, I tended to stay away from it. I had an incredibly overactive imagination, and that caused me to lose sleep if I was exposed to something scary. But as an adult, I love it. Now this game, it's special, right? Because it's made by motherfucking Tim Fallen! After Tim exited the freelance world, he created his own game studio known as Baggy Cat Studios, and I believe this was his second game. The first was Contradiction, which was a FMV detective game. At Dead of Night, hands down, is one of the most interesting and fun contemporary horror games I've ever had the luxury of playing. We play as Maya, who stops in a hotel with her friends when things go horribly wrong. The owner, Jimmy, he's a raving psychopath, and it's our job to discover his dark secrets. We'll encounter ghosts who fill us in on the backstory, and we'll be going back and forth between various rooms, hiding in multiple rooms to avoid Jimmy on our way to our objective. Believe it or not, this entire game is one big movie file. You can't access this movie file conventionally, instead the program accesses it, and it skips around pre-rendered elements, and it's incredible how they did it. This is 100% worth checking out. This game was cool while it lasted. I say that because the licensing issues that consistently plague the Friday the 13th franchise bled over to this game. We'll talk about that later though. Friday the 13th, the game, essentially let us play as either Jason or the counselors. It's cat and mouse. It's just cat and mouse, and that's okay. It's a fun game, at least it was. The counselors have to escape by a few different ways, either by getting in a car, getting in a boat, or calling the police. And all of these tasks involve elements that you would have to find, be it a car battery for the car, a gas can for the car and the boat, or a fuse to get the phone working. Jason, on the other hand, his job is murder and sabotage. The counselors are pretty straightforward. They each have their own abilities. Some can carry different weapons, some are faster. But Jason, that's where it gets important. All of Jason's varieties are relevant to how they were in the films, which I found to be awesome. For example, Part 2 Jason has a bag on his head. He can run, but his main weapon is a pickaxe. Whereas Part 7 Jason can't run, but if he goes underwater, he can fucking Usain Bolt sprint underwater. Part of the challenge is understanding the limitations of the Jason that you go up against, and that was fun to me. But like I said, there were licensing issues. Victor Miller, the guy who created the first film and who owns the right to the screenplay, has been a grade A mega cuck wiener to literally anyone and everyone who does anything with Friday the 13th. He's even sued Paramount for literally every version because he doesn't like Jason being a killer. He believed it ought to be his mom, but fuck him, like seriously, fuck you, Victor Miller. I've never met someone so dedicated to poisoning their own media franchise as he is. He goes out of his way to meticulously ensure that if it's not done by his way, then nobody else can experience it. I guess fuck everybody who was born after 2000. They're not allowed to experience Jason or Friday the 13th in any capacity. Eat ass, Miller! Anyway, if you own this game, you can play it until December 1st, 2024. After that, it won't work anymore. And it's been delisted as well, so good luck finding it. It was a great game, too. Sorry for anyone who can't enjoy it now. There was a point in time where I was captivated by checking out Sierra's point-and-click library, and many of the franchises they did involved quest games. That was the gimmick, right? Police Quest, King's Quest, Space Quest, hell even Quest for Glory. Now the original few games, they involved a text parser, which I don't mind. It can get tedious, but tedious is alright if it's the accepted norm of the era. The true point-and-click era that defined my childhood wouldn't come until the mid-90s, so all you had was a rudimentary backdrop with items that you would have to discern by way of commands. It was better than text adventures, but not as good as it could have been, but they did it, and I appreciate the hell out of Sierra for that. King's Quest itself follows the trials of Sir Graham, who is summoned by the King of Daventry. Shit's gone downhill and there are 3 treasures that were stolen, and if we get those 3 treasures, everything will go back to normal. Now, there were tons of versions of this. I personally beat the EGA version, but there is a 1987 release that expanded the story. So if you want a more fine-tuned experience, I would check out the 87 version. Most people don't like Myst. They find it to be a gigantic world of what-ifs, and for many people, that just causes instantaneous boredom. But for me, I like picking my brain. Sometimes games that provide you no insight work if the ambience is decent enough to distract you, and for Myst, it's always been like that. We piece together our own solutions and struggle through moving forward. That's how Myst and Riven were. But this is Myst 3. Myst 3 for me was the last decent one. From that point on, it would go downhill fairly quickly. Thanks, Ubisoft! Great job! In the game, we are summoned by Atris, who wants to show us his nifty little land he's created called Relishon. Atris is a member of the Dunny people. They can create worlds with words, literally, and we can visit those worlds by touching linking books. I've actually done a full series retrospective of Myst, and if you want to check it out, I'll link it down below and at the end of this video. Back to the game though, we are still unarmed, and I'm assuming it's the same person you play throughout the whole franchise. Atris shows us his book, when this scholar named Savidro pops up and lobs a firebomb at us. Before stealing the book, Atris says, "Oh no!" and sends us on a journey to get it back. To me, out of all of the antagonists I've encountered in video gaming through the years, Savidro is perhaps one of the most dynamic, and I appreciate this game. Theophobia Unite. Subnautica is an interesting game, and if you have thalassophobia, you're probably going to have a really fucking bad time with this. Thalassophobia being the fear of deep bodies of water. Now, this is a survival game through and through. Everything we need we can obtain, but the meat and bones of this game is swimming through the open ocean, finding beacons, and piecing together what's going on around us on planet 4546 Bravo. The majority of the planet is just water. There are islands, but we'll almost always be swimming, and our only peace and quiet can be found in structures we create. And we do that by scanning literally everything to find out if we can create recipes from it. It's basically underwater Minecraft without the blocks. We need to stay hydrated, we need to eat. I love this game. The entirety of this game was just an experience, and once you really get zoned into it, it's a really badass time. Honestly, I didn't think I would like it, but I actually enjoyed it. I need to play the sequel at some point, Subnautica Below Zero. Before we continue, I do want to bring up that we are currently working on approaching our next milestone, 8,000 wonderful subscribers, and if we accomplish that, I'll do a special episode of the community's choosing. Let's get back to the action. Have you ever heard of Fables, the comic book series? It was created by Bill Willingham and published by DC Comics, and it features a modern spin on various fairy tales and fables, where they escape from their old world and live every day in New York City. For those with humanoid appearances, life isn't bad. Snow White is a secretary, Bluebeard is a doctor, Ichabod Crane is the director, and Big B Wolf is the sheriff. We play as him, the Big Bad Wolf. However, if you were an animal or someone without a humanoid appearance, you would need to fork out money or trade for Glamour, a powerful spell that makes you appear to be human. Because this is an episodic game, I don't want to spoil it, but there has been a murder in Fabletown, and Big B as a sheriff needs to research it. Because it's a Telltale game, we have the luxury of behaving the way that we want to. Our choices dictate the flow of the game and how people respond to us, and I always love that. There is a sequel coming out soon, supposedly, but Telltale is a husk of what it was after a massive layoff, so we need to hope that Ad Hoc Studios pulls through. This is a game that our good friend Moo from the YouTube and Twitch community made me play on Twitch, and I'm glad that he did. Because as a minimalistic game, this was easily one of the best experiences that I've ever had, and the fact that Elden Ring beat this boggles my mind. A new idea versus an idea that has been birthed like an egg every few days, yeah, Stray was better. In Stray, we play as a stray cat, and because we're a cat, we are very nimble. We can make jumps that most people couldn't. We can meow. We can get our heads stuck in buckets. It's awesome! But it's also very dark. The whole game revolves around the collapse of a human-based city, where their robotic servants remained and created their own society. We have a drone that helps us, B12, and with the drone, we're able to talk to and understand the robots that we encounter. There are highs and lows in this game, and it's very therapeutic to me. And if you want a game that cuts against the grain in terms of adventure games, then this is one that you should play. To me, it's one of the top 10 PC games that I've ever encountered. Let's talk some multiplayer games. For a long time, I didn't co-stream or participate in party nights with my peers on Twitch because I had a pretty focused schedule that I remained incredibly loyal to. Being in the military, I'm regimented, and as such, any deviation that isn't planned tends to rub me the wrong way. Shit's on my day. But a few years ago, I would plan for these little pop-up multiplayer nights where I didn't stream, instead just playing with my friends Nova and Ghost Fox Gaming. And one of the games that we played was Lightbearers. This is a simple game of hide and seek. There's really no other way of explaining it. We play as either a light bear or a shadow bear. The shadow bear is constantly hunting the light bears, and if he catches you, he turns you into a shadow bear, which means now you're hunting the other light bears. So in a game, you could be the sole light bear while your friends are hunting you. It's interesting. And in a time dominated by phasmophobia, it was nice to play something a little bit more lighthearted. Do you remember You Don't Know Jack? I do. I never played it, but I remember it. I always remembered seeing a bald dude on a game case and wondering, what is that? Turns out it was a trivia party game. Fun stuff from Jellyvision and Berkeley Systems. There were 4 core Jack games before the company moved to a party system. That system is now known as Jackbox, and there are 10 different versions. Each of them maintain nifty little games you can play with your friends, like Drawful, Jokeboat, Nonsensory, Fixie Text, etc. 2 of my favorites are Fibbage and Trivia Murder Party. Those are just my favorites. What's so neat is that you own the game and anyone with a code can play with you. I can stream this on Twitch, you can join with your phones, or if you have it on your computer, you could play with friends around you. It's awesome. If you want a good social game to play with your friends at a party, this is one that's worth having. Wrapping up our list today is Diablo. I know I've mentioned this in my RPG episode, but I haven't covered any of them in my 10 PC Games episodes yet, so here we are. Diablo 1, the start of a legendary franchise from Blizzard, the progenitor of the loot porn genre, a game that people would invest 300 hours in and never bat an eye. This one is different though. Instead of multiple area instances like we would see in the later entries, Diablo 1 is more like Wizardry 1, where we enter one dungeon that has a metric fuck ton of floors. It's just us as well. I don't recall if you can hire mercenaries, so it's just you running down 16 randomly generated floors to kick douchebag Daddy Diablo and his decrepit demonic dick! Say that 15 times fast. As a start for the franchise, it came out swinging and maintained interest for tons of people. For me, it's like Tetris if Tetris was a role-playing game. It has the same zone-in effect where you simply fight, fight, fight. You're addicted, and it's not a bad game to be addicted to. You see results in small victories. You constantly make progress. It's a great game that's only gotten better throughout time. And that's all for today's episode. What did you think of this list? I know there's a lot more modern on here, but I do cover all aspects of gaming history, so we're going to inevitably talk about it. But hey, if you can play a modern game and feel the same way you did as a kid, even better, right? If you made it to the end of this episode, you're already home with our community. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. We're a collective of wonderful people who prefer remembering a time when life was just a little bit easier to live. And if that appeals to you, then feel free to join us. I'd personally love to have you here. Finally, the single most important thing you can do for me is to hit that thumbs up button, as it directly impacts the visibility of the videos and the projects that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes, Fortefyre out.